Hey everyone, Pastor Austin here. Thank you so much for joining us for our first Redemption Youth Devotional. Our hope is that you would share this time with your family, and we know that in the midst of everything going on right now, it might be easy to say, how does Jesus impact the way we live our life, given all of this fear, all of this panic going on today? And so I invite you to stick around as we hear from Pastor Ross as he shares a devotional for you and your family.
3 weeks. Isn't it crazy how much life change can happen in 3 weeks? I mean, 3 weeks ago, I was working full-time at Geico, and now I work full-time from home. 3 weeks ago, we were meeting over in the youth room, and now we're meeting online, which is pretty cool because, I mean, your house looks really amazing, and so I'm very impressed with that. 3 weeks ago, when I saw toilet paper, I wanted to throw it in the trash bin, right? But now, I literally have it under my shirt. Like, I am holding it tight to my chest. I love toilet paper. I'm getting a tattoo that says, I love TP. Life has changed so much in 3 weeks. In small ways and in big ways. And maybe you felt that. Maybe for you, you felt your life just change a little bit over these last couple weeks. Maybe for you, you spent way too much time with your family. Like, you love them, but you don't like them anymore. Like, get you out of this house, out of isolation. Or maybe it's been way too long since you've seen your friends in person. Maybe even you're starting to miss school. And I never thought I'd say that, but believe it or not, I miss my teachers. I miss my classroom. I miss that weird janitor who always liked to eavesdrop on our conversations. I miss campus, right? But for some of us, it's changed us in bigger ways. Like maybe this whole coronavirus thing has affected your family immediately. Maybe your parents have lost their job. Maybe your vision of graduation and life after the semester has just completely changed. Or maybe the stress of this whole situation and you're hearing things about the economy and you're hearing things about the global situation and you're just going, hey, I'm just a kid. I mean, what's going on? Or maybe you don't care about any of that because one of your family members is sick. And how can you care about the rest of the world when someone you love is sick? And so what do we do? That's what I've been finding myself asking. What do we do in times like this? Where we just feel like hurt or confusion, where the whole world is telling us to panic and we start to feel stressed or anxious. In moments like these, I wish the Bible had something to say about quarantine or isolation. I wish the Bible had something to say about social distancing. Well, believe it or not, it does. We find this story in the book of John, chapter 20, verse 19. That Sunday evening, the disciples were meeting behind locked doors because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders. Suddenly, Jesus was standing there among them. "Peace be with you," he said. That Sunday evening, that's in reference to the Sunday after the Friday which Jesus was killed on. And the disciples immediately, when Jesus is arrested and taken, they're thrown into this chaos and their whole world is really thrown into shambles in the same way that maybe you and I have experienced over the last couple weeks. They went from peace to chaos. They went from thinking that they were about to be rulers to suddenly they're rebels. Suddenly they are outlaws. Their king has just been crucified and they are scared. The disciples were meeting. You know, what's interesting is we actually don't know where the disciples were meeting. Some people think maybe it was John's house or John's mom's house, but other people think, and according to tradition, it's the place that the disciples had the Last Supper with Jesus. And the picture I kind of get in my mind is that the disciples were there in the Garden of Gethsemane and life was good and life was fine and their bellies were full and they were sleepy, and then all of a sudden one of their best friends betrayed Jesus, their leader, and suddenly they all scatter. And one by one, I picture them going to different places and they're hiding and then they start thinking, okay, where's a safe place for me? Where is the place that I last spent time with my Lord? Where is the last time I saw Jesus? Because that's where I want to be. And one by one, I picture them across the city traveling back to this place. You know, I remember when I was 16 years old, my grandfather passed away. And my grandfather, he had this big green recliner that he used to sit in. We never sat in it. I mean, it was Papa's recliner. It was the same recliner that he would eat meals in, the same recliner that he would nap in. It was the same recliner that we found him after he had passed out from a heart attack. And when he passed away and we were sitting there in their living room, none of us dared sit in that green chair, but we all wanted to be close to it. We all want to be near it because that was where our grandfather was. That's what we identified with them. And that's what I think is happening with the disciples. I think they're going to the place that they identify last with Jesus. Next, the scripture says that they met behind locked doors because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders. I mean, this makes sense. The Jewish leaders were the ones who had captured Jesus, had bribed Judas. The Jewish leaders were the reason why their life had become so wrong. And so they did what you and I are doing today. They self-quarantine, right? They get inside, they get away from harm, they push everyone else out and back, and they say, this is my safe space. I am going to stay here. And so they think that they are going to be good with the doors locked, that no one is going to come in. But they have a surprise in store. The scripture says, suddenly Jesus was among them. I mean, can you imagine? You're afraid, you're in this upper room, you don't want anyone to find you, and then no one coming through the door that you locked, but someone like laser beaming coming in the middle of your room, and suddenly it's Jesus, and the first thing he says is, peace. Right? Like, that's the furthest thing from my mind. Jesus, by you showing up this way, you are causing chaos. Like, I am so afraid right now that you beamed in my room like Star Trek, right? But Jesus, he says, peace. What you realize in this passage is when Jesus says, peace be with you, what he's kind of saying is, peace is with you. Because we know Jesus died on the cross to be our peace. And Jesus wasn't just offering the disciples peace in that moment, peace that if he could overcome the grave, then of course he could overcome the Jewish leaders. But he is offering them in that moment the personification of peace being among them in their most scary and uncertain of times. And the same thing that Jesus offered the disciples back then, he offers to you and me today. Jesus offers us peace in our panic. When we're anxious, we get to talk to him. When we're worried or concerned or stressed, he says, cast all your anxieties on me, cast all your stress on me because I care for you. When we feel isolated because of where we are, we feel like we're so alone, Jesus says, I will never leave you, nor will I forsake you. When we find ourselves being bored, Jesus is there saying, hey, instead of turning on more TV, instead of just completely obliterating your watch list on Netflix, why don't you spend time with me? That's not going to fulfill you. I will fulfill you. If we're angry or if we're hurt or if we're worried, whatever we're feeling, Jesus is there to meet us. And here's the beautiful thing in this passage. Jesus meets us where we are, but he doesn't leave us where we are. Jesus meets us in our panic, but he doesn't leave us in our panic. Jesus offers us peace. And Jesus is offering you and me peace today.
Thank you so much for joining us for our first Redemption Youth Devotional. Like Pastor Ross said, Jesus wants to meet us where we are, not leave us where we are. So in the same way, we want to leave you and your family with some discussion questions. So hang tight and discuss these questions with your family.